Hey, it's Joel. Welcome to this week's episode of the Heart to Heart podcast. Marc and Brian had an incredible conversation with Broadway star Alton White, best known for his record-breaking run as King Mufasa in The Lion King. Alton shares his inspiring journey of growth, healing, and perseverance, from navigating a tough childhood to breaking barriers on some of the world's biggest stages. He also reflects on the lessons he's learned about self-care, service, and the importance of staying true to yourself. If you're a fan of Broadway, personal transformation, or stories that uplift and empower, you're going to love this episode. Before you listen, be sure to support the podcast with a 5-star rating and a review.
My pride, and whoever's listening, it is not just a powerful autobiography, but it is life lessons for whether you're an actor or whether you're a businessman. It was incredible, Alton.
Thank you, man. I'm so glad to hear you.
Are you kidding? And some of the things really hit. And I just want to, first of all, Alton is the only African-American actor who's played. Now, is it 5 or 6? Because I'm not going to include Tommy, but without Tommy, it's John and Miss Saigon, Smoking Joe's Cafe Ken, Coal House Walker Ragtime, Mr. The Color Purple, and King Mufasa, Lion King. And then there's Tommy that you did a ensemble and different characters for.
Yeah, so 6 total.
Okay. So also, I never knew this. You never corrected me, but it's Alton, not Alton.
It's Alton.
Okay,
yeah.
That's right, Alton. I like how you described that. And there's so many quotes in the book. Well, one of the things that really grabbed my attention, and this is great, is the greatest spiritual gifts come from enjoying the most challenging circumstances. So
Yeah.
that maybe I got that a little wrong. Is that what you hesitated for?
No, I mean, I that's something I would say. I don't remember that particular part.
Okay,
but,
well, here's what I'll have you remember. So everybody always, different things of different books speak to people.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things in the book that spoke immediately to all right, first of all, Alton, they say that.
The neon lights up. No, right.
Yeah, they say the most wealthy people.
Lights up right on Broadway. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Anyway.
They say the most wealthy people are some of the most depressed people because they have everything, but yet they feel like something's missing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you come from a place where there were challenges, and for all of us, right? When there are challenges and you can get through them and they make you stronger, you're able to enjoy and have the gratitude and be able to be of service. And of course, one goes in hand with the other. So when you achieve breaking through, that is when you can ultimately have those gifts. And when you put those gifts to work, which is gratitude and service, because you know what it's like to be in a place where you felt like, how can you get out of this? The payoff is incredible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to go back to your way past.
Well, wait. Let me see. Like, have we started already? Are we?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Oh, yeah. No, we don't tell you when you start because you're more calm and relaxed.
Okay. Well, first, King Brian. Very nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Shout out to the cannon. It's like, okay. Look,
So, Alton,
okay.
we share something in common.
What's that?
I was a bedwetter. You were a bedwetter.
I was.
And let me tell you, we don't have to. We can edit this out if you want to. But the main thing is that just from that alone, at an early age, you're having to deal with. There's a lot of shame involved, and a lot of like, and I would do all kinds of things to like prevent people from, but they did in my family from finding out. And of course, in your circumstance, you slept in some of the same beds as your other family members. So of course there weren't enough beds to go around. So they found out, and you got to deal with that. Okay. So then we go to, you being bullied, and then, well, you know what, I'm going to have you speak now because what really spoke to me about, the book, and obviously it ends up with you being Mufasa, the king, right? Like the lion, but that lion, just like anything, when that lion is speaking to his son Simba, it's like Simba's got to go through his own challenges to get to be the next in line. And so let me not talk so much and be quiet now, because the story. I would like to start from the early on, because you've come so far, Alton, and it's so inspiring. And this show is called Heart to Heart to Inspire.
Wonderful. Now, first of all, this is video, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Most people will be listening.
Let me okay. Anyway,
You look great. You look and sound great.
I'm just being silly, guys. So, I mean, there was a lot. You just said a lot. So, where do you want me to start, Mark?
Well, from your career, did you forget that? I mean, you wrote the book that you were a bedwetter, but does that ever, you reminded me that what I forgot years ago, and I did it till I was 13 years old. And it wasn't easy to deal with.
Well, for me, it was dealing with a lot of trauma in my childhood, dealing with my father's alcoholism and my father's, not physical abuse, but verbal abuse. The shame of being the youngest of 7 kids and being the only boy in the household. And when I got into fights and had to go find a sibling to help me fight that battle, I had to go get a sister. So I was teased about so many different things, and being bullied and physically and verbally abused by other kids in the neighborhood. I was that kid who was always teased. There was always something wrong with me. I was a smart kid. I was a teacher's pet. So I was teased about everything, about the way I talked, because I spoke well. And I tried really hard to be a bad kid, but it just wasn't in my karma. So I was constantly going against the grain. So as kids, we were feeling these things, but we don't have the dialogue to really explain the feelings. And we don't have the outlets. So mine came out, bedwetting was one of the ways. Also people pleasing, which is something to this day that I am dealing with. I go to Al-Anon, which is for wives, children, spouses of alcoholics, because the behaviors that I've developed as a result of trying to get that constant validation outside of myself is a lifelong journey. And it's something that I'm grateful it exists, and that I could be away from Al-Anon for years, but still 10 years later walk into a room and go, I'm here with my people, with my tribe, where I can explain my feelings. I can share my feelings without having to explain, because we're all overcoming that, learning to validate ourselves. And that's so much of what this book is about, mastering my pride performance. Like, you are your own hero. And that's what Lion King really represents. We're all tapping into, we all take Simba's hero's journey. We all have to do that on our own, leave our tribe and find our own way in the world. And hopefully at some point come back and contribute to the tribe. Tap into our Mufasa, into our king, our queen, and rule our lives. And you said something about service early. I think it's important to remind people that it's great to be of service to others, but service begins with how we treat ourselves. Our number one service is making sure that you are full, that you're satisfied, that you have the capacity to serve somebody else. It starts with us. And a lot of us are raised to believe that's selfish, and that's wrong. Self-care is the number one. I always feel like you can have the best intentions and want to help, but if you're running at 40% and you're giving your best, you're left empty. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
It's funny. I was looking through my notes. There's a quote you have in the book, and something about there's only one you. I wrote it down. And so like, just know that instead of trying to be like someone else, just know there's only one you.
There's only one you, and nurture the you. You're learning learn to accept yourself. I do lots of things to keep me on that track. I do Bikram yoga, which is, very challenging. Hot yoga. The room is 105 degrees. And the reason why I love it is because it's the same 26 postures every time. You do the whole class, most of the class, looking at yourself in the mirror. And the best teachers remind you that you are your own teacher. So as you're sitting there, learning to balance, it's about accepting that person in the mirror. This is what it is. Okay, if I have too much here or too much belly, whatever, I need to accept it and then shift it if I choose to. But it starts with accepting what is, not what it should be, not what it could have been. You can only really effectively shift anything by dealing with what is in the present moment.
So I found the quote, and now is this your quote or it's be who you are because everyone else is taken.
That is not my quote. Yeah, I have sprinkled throughout the book. I have lots of quotes from
Yeah.
people that I admire and respect. I
And
do
some
have my
good.
own quotes
Yes.
too, but I picked quotes that at the beginning and the end of chapters to kind of like introduce you into what the chapter is going to be about, and also to help you hopefully provoke some thought at the end of the chapter. And
So
as you questions too, so that you are as you're reading my journey, that you're maybe seeing how it relates to yours or remembering some of your own things you've overcome.
and because you're one of the most spiritual people I know, you have so many anecdotes in the book. One of them being speaking of your father and what you had to deal with alcoholism and how important it is because you did have some issues growing up. Although some of your great memories when you were a child, and I don't know if this is my recollection, but he must have been some kind of he worked the floors in offices like with a machine. And some of your best memories are going to the offices when he was cleaning at nighttime and then falling asleep, but being able to go to breakfast with him. And even though you didn't share major conversation, just being with him, I pictured you with him.
Yeah, those are some of my best memories. In the summer times, he would clean buildings overnight. And in the summer, when I didn't have school, every once in a while he'd go, "You want to come with me?" And I would spend, he would always stop at White Castle, and he'd get a coffee, heavy sugar, heavy cream, and he let me have one as well. So we'd be there sipping our coffees and kind of in silence, and I'd go to the buildings with him. And I love the office buildings because I would sit behind the chairs like the one I'm in now and pretend, that I had a secretary and having her come in to do dictation, which is, real old school. And I was always fascinated by, at the coffee stations, the cubed sugars. Something about the cubed sugars would just seem like such a luxury, for a kid in the projects. And, and sometimes I'd fall asleep on the corner because it could be like 4 or 5 in the morning. He'd scoop me up and, sometimes carry me to the car, and we stop. And we stop someplace and get breakfast. And then I love like driving in as the sun was coming up. It was like, wow, I had this time with my father. When my father was sober, he didn't have a lot to say. It was sort of like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He was very much an introvert. But when he drank, that's when his personality came out. That's when you saw his charisma. But which I'm grateful that I got. And I'm grateful that I don't need a substance to tap into the charisma that he passed on to me.
Now, I also picture.
If I have charisma,
I also picture, like where you are. Obviously, where you are is the product of all the things that happen. So with your father, you would watch television as a kid. Yep. And you would dream about being on some of these or being the guests of some of these shows or like even like Michael Jackson influenced you to the point where you went into a private closet and would start to rehearse your own dance. And you weren't in dance school or acting school at the time.
I didn't have any kind of lessons. I mean, there's so many gifts that my parents gave me that, I have compassion for adults who become adults and are still blaming their parents for what they didn't get. It's like, dude, you're an adult now. Nobody's stopping you from doing anything. Get it yourself. At some point, you have to learn to parent yourself. And me, in doing that, I was kind of forced to do that early. But looking back on it, I'm grateful that my parents did what they could do. And they, in many ways, it was just exposing me to things. We would watch as a family variety shows, which back in the day were for entertainment. They weren't competition shows like we have now, like American Idol and The Voice and all that. The Mike Douglas Show, Laugh-In. I talk about Flip Wilson, the first variety show hosted by a Black man that was, hugely successful. How what that meant to me, being a young kid, a young Black kid, seeing somebody like that on TV. And I don't know any young kid growing up in the 60s who didn't want to be one of the Jackson 5. So we would watch these shows, the Ed Sullivan Show, the Sonny and Cher Hour, Carol Burnett Show, and I would see my favorite groups on there, white and Black. And I would go to the only place I had to myself, a storage closet in the projects, and I would stand on my father's buffer that he used to clean buildings, this big circular machine. It was a big round circle, and then in the middle it had a smaller circle. That was my stage. I would take the extension cord, and I would do these concerts in complete silence. It was my fantasy, pretending that I was one of the Jacksons or one of the Temptations or one of the Four Tops. And in terms of singing, so I'm grateful that my parents exposed me to that. Now, in terms of singing, I never, ever thought I would ever find the courage to sing in front of anybody. It was my secret. It was something that was just for me because I was being teased and bullied about everything. I couldn't make a good move. If I got a great grade, I'd be teased and bullied, and somebody would threaten to want to fight me because I got a better grade than them. It was just, kids can be crazy. So the singing thing was my own thing. And I would sing along with the radio. And we also listened to the radio station that played every kind of music: pop, rock, jazz, country, easy listening. Of course, the Motown sound. So I grew up listening to everything. So they were like the TV and the radio, were really like my only friends, to be honest. So I would sing along with the radio by myself when I had time by myself, and I would harmonize, but I didn't know that I was harmonizing. I didn't know that I could sing. I just liked how it made me feel. I liked the vibration in my body when I was saying. So I really, really never ever thought I would ever become a singer. It was like an impossible dream that gratefully has come true.
But a dream.
But a dream. Everything starts with a dream.
Realized. But what we go back to your father now. So there were moments where you were just with him on the couch watching these shows where it all began, and then
we watched these as a family. It was never. I tell you, my father was such an introvert that there were times I would try to sit there because he loved Westerns, he loved science fiction, like he was a Star Trek fanatic. He loved nature shows. I would try to sit there and watch with him, and he would get so uncomfortable that he would go, why aren't you out playing with the kids? Or why aren't you out doing something? Mm-hmm. I didn't have kids to play with. All the kids in the projects teased me. I lived in a cul-de-sac. So my father really was kind of like when he was sober and we all walked around on eggshells, he was as quiet as a mouse and glued to the TV. And you were like, leave him alone, thinking there's something we could do to keep him sober. That's one of the things you get as a child of an alcoholic. You think that you're responsible or there's something you can do. If you're a better kid or if you get better grades, then your parent won't drink. That's not true. So it was rarely just the two of us. It was really mainly as a family we would watch these shows. I have to like really, really single that out because I hoped that he would let me sit and just sit with him, which shows you how significant it was to have these evenings with him when I would go with him when he would clean the buildings. That was the only time that we would have together.
Hey, it's Brian. I'm dropping in on an important announcement. What you need to know is you have more control over your career than you think. The thing standing between you and the career you want is your connections. And that's where One-on-One Next Level comes in. If you are not a member yet, you can apply to join at oneononenextlevel.com. Press pause and do that now. If you are already a member and you are ready to get back on track, we want to invite you to book a strategy session with us led by myself personally. We will help you prioritize which classes make the most sense given your career goals. You can find these under the Resource Hub in your account portal. We can't wait to hear your success story.
And so when you left the house and one thing led to another, you weren't exactly like, you didn't exactly have, this closeness with your father. You didn't have that. However, and this is what's interesting about the book, because you talk about it, people can hold on to anger or, there needs to come a point where if they don't forgive that their father was it. So you mentioned, and I'd like you to tell the story of how you were so connected to whatever it is that one of the performances of The Lion King, you had plans to go visit him in the hospital, but something happened halfway where you couldn't even go on for the second, and you didn't even know what to do. So you called your manager and said, I just broke down. I can't even go on for the after intermission. What do I do? And she told you tell the powers that be to get someone to go in your place, and you get to that hospital. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, it was all very, very divine. I want to go back a little bit further because I grew up really, really disliking my father because like he disliked me, but again, healing is so important. There are no shortcuts to anything in life. I used my father as an example of what I didn't want to be. So I gave my mother all the credit for being the responsible one, the one who supported us no matter what, who was always showed up, was always present, what as present as she could be. She was pretty overwhelmed. But then I used my father like, okay, my mother's what I want to be. My father, I'm going to be the opposite of him. And I reached a point, and the point for me was when I got from the chorus in my first Broadway show, Miss Saigon, and I got bumped up to one of the lead roles. And I remember there was a celebration after my first performance, taking over the lead. And the next morning, I was like, "What is wrong with me?" I thought this would be it. This would be that something that would make me feel better. And I realized, and I had a good friend that I was sharing it with who said, "You need to go into therapy, because you should be celebrating right now. But what are you running from?" And going to therapy is when I realized, oh my God, I've been using my father as fuel, but it's expired. I can't blame him anymore. I'm an adult now. And through that journey, through therapy and Al-Anon is when I started to go, oh, wow. I remember like a time before I disliked my father, when I really wanted my father's attention, when I loved my father, which was really painful to go through, but going through that fire and getting to the other side was all this beauty of like, oh my God, my father did tell me he was proud of me. My father did influence me. Oh, my father showed me what I didn't want to be. Oh, wow, I get my charisma and my talent from my father. My mother's very shy, very quiet. I was suddenly able to see the gifts that he gave me, not just the hurt and pain, right? So then, and I made peace with him, with my father and his alcoholism. When I would go home to visit, he lived with one of my sisters, and I would spend time with him. I would ask him questions about his life because I had enough detachment and enough space to really go, wow. And also becoming a Black male adult myself, I realized the challenges that we face and that I have so many more outlets available.
Which were harder for him than you.
Exactly. He didn't have the outlets. I mean, a lot of Black men back in the day, they had church and they had maybe the barbershop or the bar. That's where they went to express themselves. And that only went so far because a lot of us men aren't raised to be expressive and to tap into our vulnerability. Men of any race, any whatever. We're just not, a lot of us aren't raised that way. So I was able to find forgiveness and then find compassion. So I reached this point where I was on tour with Lion King and I knew that we were going to be going to Cincinnati, which was a dream come true, to go home with a big hit show. And about a month out, I just had this feeling, something said, call your father and invite him out. So I called him and said, hey, Dad, I called him Daddy. We haven't really had any time together since like back in the day when I used to go with you to clean the buildings. Let's just go to lunch or dinner. We don't have to talk. I just want to be with you. I just realized that it's never just been the two of us. It's been us and the family. And he said, okay. So we made the date and I get to Cincinnati, the day comes, and I called him and my sister picked up the phone and said, Daddy's not feeling well. He's not going to be able to make it. And my heart sunk. But then I remember I extended the invitation. That's all I can do. You can't make anybody do anything. I've made peace with him. He can't come because I thought maybe he was uncomfortable, but I was like, okay, whatever. Turns out he really was ill. He was admitted to the hospital, and my father had, been diagnosed with a bunch of different things, but yet he was still sneaking cigarettes and still, little sips here and there. And me being the only child who was in recovery, and I love all my siblings, but I needed recovery to really, really round out and balance my life. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go to the hospital and go, oh, poor Daddy, because he's still doing what he wants to do. And that's the thing about, if you're not in recovery, it's easy to become or remain an enabler for the alcoholic. And I don't have any judgments about that. We're all doing the best we can. So I thought, okay. And my mother was supposed to come to the show that night. And she said, your father's really ill. So can you get rid of the ticket? I'm like, no problem. Somebody will buy the ticket. She goes, you sure you don't want to go see him? I'm just like, no, I'm praying for him. I'll talk to you later. And so I go on to the show and I'm getting ready, and Mufasa on tour. Well, in the show, Mufasa starts on Pride Rock, and Pride Rock is lifted out of the ground, right? On tour, they call it the Choo-Choo Rock, whatever. So I'm on the rock and the music starts and my heart starts to beat really fast. I'm like, what is going on? okay. And I'm climbing Pride Rock, and they're doing the circle of life, and I get to the top and I hand the baby off, and I'm like trying to hold it together, like, what is going on? Like, why am I hearing this music differently for the first time? And this is like my 500th show at this point, at least 500th show. So I get off stage and I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. And then I go to do this big scene between Simba and Mufasa. They Live in You, where he's talking about tapping to the energy of your ancestors, and energy lives on forever. And I could barely make it through the song. And I'm like, what the heck is going on with me? I've done this song so many times. And I get off stage. I couldn't get off stage fast enough. I get to the dressing room and I disperse in tears. And I called the only person that I could really talk to, which was my manager at the time, because she had issues with her father and alcoholism. And I said, Renee, I don't know what's going on. She's like, what's happening? I said, I'm just like breaking down. I don't know what's going on. I could barely make it through the song. She said, well, what's happening right now? I said, well, my father's in the hospital. She's like, you need to go right now. I was like, no, I'm in the middle of the show. I can't. She said, Alton, go tell stage management your father's in the hospital and you need to leave right now. So then I really burst into tears. I go tell them I got to go. Then I go, please go, go, go. I got on my clothes, hop in my car. And I'd already decided that somewhere along the way that, you know what, after the show, I'm gonna drive up and go see him. And I even mentioned it to her. She's like, no, you need to go right now. I said, okay. And she's the only person who could have convinced me to do this. Not even my mother could have convinced me. So change clothes, I get to the hospital and I walk in and my mother, she's like, I can't believe you're here. She's so happy to see me. It's my mother, myself, and the youngest girl, my youngest sister, who's 5 years older than me. And, we were talking to him and he's on a breathing tube at this point. And at one point we step away and we're sharing funny stories about him. And I'm like, wow, I can actually laugh about stuff about my father, stuff that seemed tragic. I mean, and sometimes you don't know how healed you are until you get there. And in that moment I was like, wow, I really come a long way with this. And so many things happened, hit me right before they happened. We're all gathered here talking and my father's over here in the bed and something had me just look at all the machinery. And I was looking at the numbers. I saw them slowly start to go down. Then they started going faster and faster. I was like, guys, I think it's time. And they were like, what do you mean? Like what? And then next thing I know, bells and whistles go off. People rush into the room. So many things happen. When I first, sorry, I got to go back a little bit. When I first got into the room, my mother was like, yeah, it's worse than we thought. They're thinking maybe he'll make it to the morning. And I knew right then and there, nope, he's going to die very soon. And had I waited, I'd have missed everything. Had I stayed at the show. So the bells and whistles go off. We go to the table. We go to see him, and we're holding his hand. And I'm saying, "Let go. It's okay to let go." And I said, Paul W. White, you were by no means a perfect father, but thank you so much for having me. Thank you so very much for agreeing to be my parent, because I believe we choose our parents. And he took that and he was fighting. And then he wound up taking that final breath. And it was one of the most beautiful things I ever witnessed. Now, I always thought I'll be in Europe or something performing and I'll get the call that my father passed. And I go, well, yeah, because he wouldn't stop doing what he liked to do. And at the same time, I was like, people drink because they enjoy it. He did what he wanted. You know what I mean? To us, it's like, oh my God, it could have been so much more. But his choices were his choices. And Al-Anon and all the work I've done on myself helped me to accept that and not take it personally. People's choices are their choices. They affect other people, if we allow that, but people do what they want to do and they have a right to do what they want to do. So it was really, really beautiful experience knowing that, wow, he was calling me. I got emotional because he was going, I am waiting for you. So for all the times that as a kid where I felt like I was invisible, I was in the way, he waited for me.
And Alton, sometimes I think people into being big drinkers, I used to bartend. And so some of the most interesting people I met were as a bartender and they were alcoholics.
Yeah.
And the reason they are alcoholics is because they're so in touch with their sensitivities, they can't handle it.
Right.
So
they're some of the most gifted people.
Yeah, I don't think it's just about checking out. They're checking out because they can't. They're so sensitive that they're not able to handle the stimuli of life.
Yeah, Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, yeah, I get it. I
Yeah.
have compassion for all of it. Like, I used to judge. I mean, I live in New York. I see some of everything every day, and I've learned to not judge, but also as a recovering codependent, know that I didn't cause it. I can't cure it. That's your choice. Whether it's somebody who's on the street, the same person I see, begging for money every day, I'm like, that's what you choose to do. That person probably has so many gifts and could offer so many incredible things to the world, but this is what they choose to do. So instead of going, oh, that poor person, I go, wow, interesting choice.
So interesting choice, because our life is all about choices, right? Like, it's about the choices we make in life end up culminating to you being where you are, Brian.
Yeah.
Where okay. So,
and also being accountable for those choices, because that's where the real gift is.
and then what you say in the book is like, sometimes like after you had achieved a great deal of success, friends would come up to you, or family members or whoever would say, "You're so lucky." And you were like, luck is actually something that, yeah, it's a blessing, but it just doesn't come to you. You have to go after what you're going after to achieve luck.
I don't believe in luck, period. I think there's nothing required of luck, right? And if you believe in luck, then you're gonna allow yourself to be at the mercy of luck, because luck will expire without any notice. So you can be on a lucky streak, and then suddenly it just stops. You're like, what happened? Yeah, because you're relying on luck. There's nothing like skill, technique, dedication, integrity. Those are the things you can fall back on. Like, so when you're disappointed, when that investment doesn't pay off, the bottom doesn't drop out. Yeah, you may lay back and be disappointed, but you have a foundation to land on to get back up. Luck is just like, oh, the luck ran out, so then what?
Right.
Yeah.
And Alton, you also have to really to believe in yourself. It's so easy to say, believe in yourself, but there are so many things that happen. We're going to take you to and you really captured a thing for me where you're in college now, and you're putting your heart and soul, because you got into not only college, because you experienced college, but then you got into whatever it was called, University of Cincinnati. They're like acting,
musical theater program, yeah,
a musical theater program. But you had I guess like 2 times a year or 3 times a year, you had to go in front of the faculty, and you put your heart and soul into creating these your own musical numbers with from various music that you chose from shows, and you were so excited. You get up there and you put your all into it, and then you find out the head guy, you're up there, and the head guy saying, "What were you doing, Alton?" Alton, and of course all the other professors, they followed suit, right? They were like, "Yeah, what were you?" And then you find out later, one of the professors or one of the teachers comes up and compliments you, and pretty much admits to you the reason that, because you were like, "Why are you complimenting?" You had failed.
You just failed me, yeah.
Yeah, and he said, "Well, they pretty much had to go along with the head guy." So we live in a world, I call it the herd mentality, where people have to go along with the herd, but you have to be strong enough to believe in yourself. Anyways,
absolutely, yeah, you do. You have to believe. I mean, there'll be many times, and I tell people this all the time, there'll be many times when you feel like you're the only person who believes in you, and that has to be enough. That your belief in yourself has to be enough. You can get advice from 100 different people, but the ultimate decision has to come from you.
That's right.
There are no shortcuts to that. Unless you're still dealing with accountability stuff. I can go, hey, Marc, Brian, I'm dealing with this issue. What do you think I should do? I take your advice and go, and then it doesn't turn out great. Well, it's that daggone Marc and Brian. I should blah, blah, blah. No, it's my decision. And I've got to be accountable for my decisions. And the rewards you get from that, from being accountable, no matter how difficult it is, are immeasurable. That's where the real stuff is. It's in the avoidance. That's what keeps you going in circles and blaming other people and giving your power away and letting yourself be at the mercy of other people's opinions and decisions. That's where you get trapped and become like everybody else. But None of us is like everybody else. I think it's important to remind ourselves that we are unique. Not chronically unique, because we all need community, but we all are unique, and we're always going to be tested in those ways. Yet at the same time, we will always find community. I always say there's always always a group of people at the next vibration waiting for you. Just when you think, man, I've gone against the grain, but here I am. I'm feeling isolated by myself. Keep going. You will find your next tribe that's going to nurture you.
So you were in touch with what felt good, what didn't, and for a lot of people listening, especially the actors, in a program like you were in, there are a lot of politics that go on, and you were used to being, like you said, the favored one. In high school, you were you had a lot of support, and not only the teachers but the students. Now you're in this university in this special musical theater program
in the same town.
For some reason, you're not the favored one.
Well, also realize, that a big light bulb moment for me was when I realized they don't know what to do with me as a Black male performer.
That's what I was going to just start to say.
Yeah, because I racked my brain trying to make sense of it. And when things become absurd, and I'm reminded of this all the time, and I try to remind this or mention this to people that I love, hoping that it works for them, that for me, in my life, when things get absurd, that's when I know, it's time for me to stop trying to make sense of it. It'll never make sense to me. And for me, either I'm probably ahead of that's something I'm looking for. Because when I found out that when I start overcompensating, which I tend to do as a recovering a people pleaser, I go, oh, wait a minute, I've already done the work. Now I've got to just kind of chill. And then it becomes, well, what am I going to do with all this energy I have? I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to do the next right thing that's going to make me feel good. Whether it's,
When you captured in the classroom with the one teacher going, saying, Alton, it's a shame, Broadway. Let
me set it up for you. So I'm in class one day. I'm the only Black male in the class at this point. I think there was a Black woman in class. And she goes around the whole room saying, oh, Thomas, when you get to Broadway, you've got so many great roles waiting for you. This show. Susan, oh, you got this, blah, blah, blah. And she saves me for last. She goes, Alton, unfortunately, the only kind of roles waiting for you on Broadway are slave type roles like in Showboat. And I was like, did you do it to me? Out loud, and of course it hurt my feelings and it was embarrassing, but then, and I cried my tears. And I think it's important to, especially in this business, because this business is tough, don't pretend to be like you're made of iron. Cry, let that out, because that energy will chase you around. That energy wants to be expressed, right? And can be replaced by something nourishing. So I cried my tears, but then I realized, I was like, okay, how can I use this in a way to empower me? And I was like, okay, you think that's all that's waiting for me? I'll show you. I'll show the school. I'll prove it to everybody. And more importantly, I'll prove it to myself. There's more waiting for me. And it was also a gift because I realized these folks can nurture me. I was nurtured in high school where our school colors were black and white, and there were never two leads who were the same race. And here I am in this one of the top schools in the country in my same town. And I realized I would never be cast in a role. So knowledge is power. It may be difficult, but at least I know what I'm dealing with. And it allowed me to take what I could use and leave the rest, which is exactly what I did. I was like, I'm only going to take classes that really are going to further me because I'm ready to get out of here anyway. I'm ready to hit the stage. So I did what I could. And right after that, I wound up booking a USO tour because I worked at Kings Island doing shows every year. And they would pick a couple of performers to tour the world. So
which, by the way, Kings Island, you once again, going back to your childhood, that was one of the best memories you had, Kings Island.
Once a year I would go. My sister worked for Procter & Gamble. They'd have a Procter & Gamble day, and she would let me come with her family. And when I got old enough, I would sneak away and I would go see the shows. And I'd be like, wow. And I thought that was Broadway, because
American Heritage Theater, yeah.
American Heritage Theater, right. So to grow up and eventually finally be hired at Kings Island, where I was given every solo in the show, including the dance solo, was again, a dream come true. So I go from that to CCM, where I'm going to school, where I'm never cast in a show. After being casted ever, and I was like, okay. So I was able to put everything together and go, this is absurd. Let me try to figure this out. They don't know what to do with me. Let me take what I can use and leave the rest. Then I booked to me, the reward for being accountable for all of this was this USO tour where I got to, I took a semester off and I got to see the world. I went to Asia. It was like a 3-month tour. And I remember coming back for class. And I was there one day and I realized I'm done. Because they were doing the same thing, talking the same stuff. And I was like, my instinct says it's time to go. So I withdrew. I took dance classes. I was like, that's the one thing I need to really work with. I took dance classes in Cincinnati. I auditioned for this person taught a particular technique. They came out of Chicago. I studied this technique. I went to Chicago to audition for the company. I got a full scholarship. And there were people there looking for dancers. So I got work already. So I went to Chicago on a full scholarship and with jobs. So I was like, now part of me could have been like, well, no, I started this, I have to finish it. And it's like, no, I'm finished here. It's time it's okay. I mean, one of the great things about being an adult is that we can change our minds. Nobody has understand but us. But if your gut says it's time to do something different, follow your gut.
That story resonates a lot with me, that especially when you like mentioned when you're like, wait, is this absurd? Like, where am I? Like what am I going through?
Right.
I think I had the same exact thing. Like when I was in school, it's like, wait, how many times can I do the king and I? And like, why am I just bouncing around like the king?
Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. You know there's more, and it's like, and for some people that's enough. But if you know that there's more that you want to share, if there's more service you want to do, in other kinds of ways, it's up to you to pursue that. And sometimes that means going, you know what, I've done my last king and I. I'm going to head off for something else. But also being prepared for that shot. Like, okay, somebody goes, okay, here's a role. Can you do it? You better be ready to do it. You better be working on that something else, as opposed to just sitting there and just complaining about the problem. You got to focus on the solution as well.
And it's super impressive that like while you were in school, you were able to make that realization and make that change for yourself. Because I can imagine most people would just be like, hey, you know, I should be grateful I'm in this like top musical theater program. Like you know, I should just follow their advice. But you were kind of in a way like a maverick.
Well, you know, a lot of it was passion. I was still too young to really even have the dialogue to express that. But I knew like, wait a minute, I'm not going to be held down here. You aren't going to tell me what kind of future I'm going to have. And I also knew that they were ignorant. I thought, how dare you be running a department and not know that at that time there were so many, that was during the heyday of Black shows. There were so many hit Black shows on Broadway at that time. And I thought, how dare you only know material that's suited for you? Like, so I realized she was ignorant. And not dumb, but like she was just ignorant. So that helped as well. That and passion. Because I was like,
passion and also listening to yourself, Alton, because, you know, just like Kenny Rogers said, and you do it so often, you have to know when to fold them.
Exactly. Totally.
Nobody does special programs like One-on-One Next Level. It's where we really help actors shine.
I'm Emilio. I signed with my Southeast agent right after the Atlanta trip, and now I'm auditioning several times every month. And you know, I almost didn't do the Atlanta trip because I thought it was just another cash grab. I can tell you from experience that it's not. That's not how One-on-One Next Level rolls. And here we are 6 months later, and I already booked my first job with my Atlanta agent.
I'm Rebecca, and the Bridge program demystified the industry for me. It gave me the platform to get off book in under 10 minutes. I met 60 new artists that are now all a part of my community, and I even signed with a manager. I have never walked away from a program so confident in my abilities. I'm so grateful for One-on-One Next Level.
My name is Capenna, and I can finally call myself a working actor after participating in the LA Super Showcase. I had just moved to LA and I felt stuck. I came across the LA Super Showcase, and let me tell you, it was a life-changing experience. I signed with an agent, and since then, I've been auditioning for series regulars and booked my first TV job. I finally feel like I made it to the next level, thanks to One-on-One Next Level.
In the next 12 months, One-on-One Next Level will host 27 special programs bringing you unmatched, exclusive access to industry connections. Special programs aren't just a one-and-done class. Instead, they're designed to accomplish in a weekend what it takes most actors months, even years to do. So whether you want to get repped in a smaller market like Atlanta, bypass casting directors and connect directly with TV showrunners and decision makers, or spend a weekend meeting a bunch of musical theater industry professionals in New York City, You have to become a member to be eligible to sign up for our special programs. To apply, go to www.oneononenextlevel.com. We can't wait to hear your success story.
So here's my question, because simultaneously with that, I always believe, you go where there's flow and you don't go when there's no flow.
Right.
So for you, 4,308 performances, is that right?
It's insane. Yes.
4,308 perform. Okay. Yeah. I understand that there was a little break sometimes. It's not exactly you did them in a row, but how does one go through 4,308 performances and have the mindset that every day is a new day?
Dude, the money. No, I'm joking. But I mean, that was a part of it. It was part of it.
That's good. I love this.
Yeah, part of it was like, okay. I mean, I'd auditioned for some other things along the way, and I thought, it's going to take a lot for me to leave Mufasa. I'm playing the king in a guaranteed hit with a company that I know there's no chance of the checks ever bouncing. So I was like, this is a gift, and I can afford to really be specific about my dreams from this point on. And I reached a point when I was like, wow, I'm getting really tired of doing the same role. I need to know that I can do other characters, and I can play a human being, not just a lion, And things would come up, so I would do a little workshop here, a workshop there, and I would go, okay, that satisfied it. I got to play a person in a decent role for a minute, and it gave me a different appreciation for what I already had. I was able to see it from a different angle. And then there were other times when I was like, okay, I'm running out of steam again. You know what? It's time for me to do an album. I need to do some kind of a theater album. So I wound up doing. I had a meeting with Thomas Schumacher at Disney and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a Disney album. I'd like to get the rights to use some of these songs. He was like, great, you have to pay for it. I was like, I want to pay for it. I want to own my arrangements. He was like, great, you have access to anything in the catalog. That was overwhelming, so I focused on Disney on Broadway. So that was a whole year project that gave me something else to do. So I wasn't just doing The Lion King, I was doing The Lion King for other reasons. So I would, spend the days working out the arrangements with my friend who did all the orchestrations and stuff. And then I get to the theater and I'd be excited, like, wow, I'm not just doing the show. This show is financing another dream. So that was a whole year and a half that took up. And then, releasing it and then doing concerts, Disney My Way concerts. So they gave me I had a nice balance going there. And then Disney started asking me to do some other things for them, like to go out and do, be a guest performer on some of their cruises, and we did a whole Disney concert series that was really, really cool. So there were other things that really helped to kind of renew my energy at Lion King. And then it reached a point, and then I left at one point to do Mr. in the Color Purple, which was a great thing to play because I've been playing the good father, the king, for so long, to play this really challenging, hurt, tortured character. And I needed to remind myself that I could still act and play someone like that. So did that, and then Lion King invited me back to open the Las Vegas company. Excuse me, guys.
That's all right.
We can always edit it out.
Lord, stop it. I don't know how to turn.
That's all right.
We can wait.
We can edit this out. But I before I forget, and because this is, was there ever a time when you were playing the lion,
mm-hmm.
and you're out in a social event or whatever, that and if you could give us an example, like that part of you thinking that you are the lion, and now you're in social, you actually were a little bit being a little bit of a lion. No,
never.
Okay, wow.
My Mufasa was down here.
I could be like, get me another burger, please.
No, I have pretty clear distinctions between my professional life, especially when I was doing musical theater, and my personal life, because I gave so much. I mean, 8 shows a week is no joke. The first title of my book was going to be 8 shows a week is not for the weak. Because so many people are like, oh my God, I can't wait to get on Broadway. And you're so lucky, you're so blessed. I'm like, dude, once you get here, it is no joke. No. Maintaining it and then finding the energy to have it hopefully lead to other things, it is no joke. The repetition
and the pressure
to be played with, the pressure, and the lack of a social life. the lack of, your relationships suffer. You're opposite the entire world.
Hey, can you get together? No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, our show for most of the year, our schedule, because you do 8 shows a week with the Broadway schedule, 1 Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. And Saturday was really brutal because you're coming out of Friday night, you got some of Saturday morning, you got that matinee, you got a 1:30 half hour, 2 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and then Sunday the show was at 1 o'clock, not 2 o'clock. So you're coming out of the exhaustion of 3 shows in a row, and you've got 2 more to do, and then you have your 1 day off where you're trying to rest, but you may be doing a workshop, you may have auditions that day. There's so many times I would go, okay, well, Monday I'm gonna rent a car and just go to Jones Beach and just kind of just chill. And you get that call early in the morning. There's a commercial audition at 11 o'clock, and it's like, I gotta cancel it. Or if there's a TV or film audition, and don't let there be pages of dialogue. Okay, well, there goes my whole day trying to memorize the stuff. And this is before we had to do self tapes. Now it's even more, because it's like, I've got to be the cameraman, the sound engineer, all those different things. Got to find somebody to read with. It's no joke. So that's no joke on its own. Let alone when you add 8 shows a week into it. It's not for the weak. It's because you were chosen to do it. You asked to do it, and you said yes.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of TV and film opportunities, I know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, you are kind of like an OG one-on-one member from, all the way. You were in our 30th birthday video. In fact, the clip of you singing is one of the first snippets we included. Yeah. So I'd love to. I know, Mark would be better at, segueing into this, but I'd love to talk a little bit about how you branched out into TV and film after all your, musical theater.
Yeah, especially Alton. Sorry, I've called you Alton for all these years.
I know the struggle is real, but you can do this. I have faith in you.
Because what was I getting? Oh, you were pegged, and you experienced, and so many people are, especially when you're doing The Lion King that long. The herd mentality. You are a musical theater actor. You are not a TV and film actor. They could never see you that way.
Yeah, they couldn't.
And we're talking William Morris.
Yeah. Oh goodness, that's a whole other story. William Morris.
Right, but what I'm saying is, even an esteemed company that sees this is a professional actor, he's been doing it all this time, he wants to be TV and film, but it always happens that because you've done it so long, they're never going to see you. You have that challenge.
Dude, let's keep it extremely real. That's not the only part of it. The other part of it, if an agency, if they see that you are a musical theater worker that works, they want to keep you in musical theater because they're going to keep getting that 10% cut every week. So they're not going to promote you. And that's one thing I realized with William Morris. They're not going to really, really push me because they want to keep collecting these checks. And that was
even though you told them.
Even though I told them. So I realized, again, let me take what I can use and leave the rest. So to make this transition, I was like, while I'm still with them, before I leave, let me throw that name around because that's all that's in it for me. I'm with William Morris. So what? I didn't book a single TV and film thing. I might wind up booking a couple of things on my own while I was with them. And then they came after me and were like, well, we just saw that you did X, Y, and Z. And why didn't you call? I said, because I'm not signed with you. Remember, you didn't want to sign me. And that's what let me know. Yeah, you didn't want to sign me because you want my music. You want a cut of my musical theater earnings. That's it. So, and again, that's part of believing in yourself, and making sure that the first service you do is to yourself, your own best interest. And the way I see agents and managers, we work together. You submit me, I book the job. You negotiate it, and if I have issues, that's why when I would be on set or something, and I would see something, I would go, well, maybe I should do something. I was like, no, that's what I'm paying my manager to do. Let me call them and let them take it. Look, you be the bad cop. I'm here in the moment. I'm not gonna risk my reputation. You represent me. Earn that cut. And many actors forget about that. We're so busy, so grateful to have the opportunity. Yeah. I get gratitude, but at the same time, you got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And there's a way to do that. That's what representation is for. You're going to earn that money. I'm not giving anybody anything. When I was younger, I would do that. I would do that. Yeah.
So how did you take that, like what was next? Like after you were like, hey, this isn't working, like William Morris isn't,
After William Morris, I negotiated some things on my own, like with Disney, with the Disney stuff, because I fell out with them because I'd done Lion King. I met them. I auditioned for The Color Purple. I booked the role, and I auditioned for Color Purple. I auditioned for Mr. as an exercise, not with no intention of doing it, because I knew the person who was doing it on Broadway, and I knew that the tour was coming. I was like, I'm on Broadway playing Mufasa. I'm not going to leave to go on tour. And they kept saying, no, we really want you to come in. They want you to come to the callback. I said, I've already succeeded. I want to go in and have a good audition. The fact that they want to see me again, yay, icing on my cake. I'm out. No, they really want to see you. And I'm like, and it turns out because they knew they were going to fire the Mr. on Broadway, and they wanted me to replace him. Because I was thinking, I'm not coming in for the tour. Even if I book it, I'm not going to do it. I found this out later. So then when I book it, I'm thinking, okay, I'm with William Morris. I'm going to be playing this lead role. I had to take a cut in pay.
Wow.
Plus, at that point, I was already negotiating my own contracts with Lion King and not paying anybody a cut. So like my investment was huge. Like I'm taking less money and I'm going to be paying somebody a fraction of that less money. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to invest in this. It's William Morris. It's a role. It's a great role. It's opposite of what I've been playing for all these years. I did it for me. But I said, okay, let me give them a chance. Okay, now you can get some people in to see me doing this great dramatic role. I had one audition that entire year that I did, Color Purple. So the turning point came when Mr. and Color Purple closed, and Lion King called me back and asked me to open up the Vegas company. And I thought, okay, great. And William Morris actually wanted to take a cut. I was like, you're kidding me, right? This is a relationship I had before you even came along, and like, there's nothing to discuss. I have a relationship with them, and they were like, well, this is kind of they were kind of pressuring me, and I said, you know what? And I remember talking to the agent at the time, who's since retired, and saying, I'm going to put it like this: if this is a deal breaker, then that's it. I said, I will give you a one-time fee for taking the call that I let you take. But you will not be getting 10%. And if that's a deal breaker, then I thank you very much for as far as we've come. It's been a joy. Thank you. And he was like, and he went into a huff, and I was like, that's it. I was like, I'm not giving anybody anything. As hard as we work as actors, so I'm going to, you're about to retire. You're going to go off to the sunset with my 10% that you didn't even. So that's when I was like, okay. So then from there, that's when I knew I needed a manager. Because I'd had a manager before, because it was more of an intimate relationship. I always got lost in big agencies for that reason, them wanting to keep me musical theater for money. They didn't care about my career. They wouldn't even give me the opportunity. And I met with Marc, and Marc helped to change my life, because he was like, he introduced me to some people. He introduced me to Laurie Smith, and to tell you how the universe works everything out. I had some TV.
By the way, Laurie was one of the first actors at One-on-One.
As an actor. Look at that. Yeah. I was like, I had done like some Law and Orders and commercials here and there, but like I never had a chance to really pursue it because I was doing 8 shows a week. So I got into Bob Krakauer's class, which was huge, to get his validation for him to go, yeah, you got some natural stuff there. You just need to work on some things. And I took some classes, and I realized that a class wasn't right for me. Because I have always been very ambitious. I've always been a fast learner. I was like, I need a one-on-one thing. So I went to one-on-one. See how that happened? So I was at an audition, a commercial audition, and I saw a fellow actor who was doing musical theater, and I was seeing him in commercials and episodics. I was like, dude, like, who are you working with? It's like, well, I work with a teacher, but I also do some coaching. I was like, really? And that's when they were just starting to do self-tapes. And I've never been a tech person. I'm a little better now, but not much better. It just didn't really interest me. And he was like, yeah, I work with you, and I can show you how to self-submit. And I'm like, I will never be able to learn that. But okay, sure. So he would come to me, he would send me a scene a couple of nights before, and then we get together and we do stuff, we put it on tape, we analyze it, sort of like what we did in Bob's class. And that really helped me. So, and I got to fast forward to the pandemic when, everything shut down, and I had a couple of auditions. I auditioned for a major film that became, I didn't know what it was at the time, but that became Indiana Jones 5. They came through, and I was like, yeah, who would want to go to Europe and do this unnamed project? But I have nothing but time. Let me tap into what Brian taught me and go to YouTube. And on my cell phone, I did the scenes. And then I wound up booking it. So in the middle of the pandemic, I'm in Europe for 3 weeks, having this amazing experience filming this movie. I booked 3 commercials during the pandemic, all because I took the time to learn how to submit myself. And I had those from Bob to having a private coach and going, okay, let me just, So yeah, there's so many ways to get there. And a lot of it is going against the grain, not following the pack, but listening to your gut and going, yeah, why not me? Why not give it my best shot?
I'm curious.
Yes.
There's a role out there that if I was your manager,
yeah.
Well, first of all, it's a Broadway role that you have not done. That is, you would own it.
What's that?
Can you take? I would see you take one guess.
Oh, the only role that I've seen that I would want to do is the role in Hadestown.
Whoa, that's not the role. You want to hear the role?
Yeah.
The father manager in MJ.
You know what? They called me in for that.
First of all, your life experience and your inner strength, and anyways, I could see you playing the father with a sense of compassion. Yeah. Anyway, I was so dumbfounded when I saw that. I thought of you.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, I've been offered a lot of stuff too. I'm just not interested in doing 8 shows a week anymore.
Yeah, no, of course.
The life I have now, like I get to sing. I was with the Boston Pops 3 times last year. Or this year, I was with the Cincinnati Pops. I made my directorial debut with the Cincinnati Pops. I do, as a keynote speaker, I make more doing one 45-minute speech than I made a month doing Mufasa.
Wow.
All of that is because, and I try to remind us creatives, our lives are accumulative. We're all artists. None of us are just singers, dancers, or actors. We're also writers. We're thinkers. We're dreamers. There's so many ways to monetize our other passions. So I'm so used to my freedom, and I get sent and wined and dined and first class travel, dude. That is my life now. So the thought of like being confined to 8 shows a week, it would take something really special. And I'm not saying I'll never do it. I would love for that something to come along where I can go, wow, I can take all my theater experience and my experience since I left theater and really put it and really serve this role. It would be fulfilling, but it's got to be that kind of fulfilling because I know how much it takes.
So where do you see yourself? You've come so you've done so much. So as far as in TV and film, what do you want now?
I want a series regular. I want a series regular on a really fun show with people who love being there and who love creating together. And I say that because I've done enough TV and film now to know that, especially with the episodics, that it's hard work. I mean, the hours you spend, and time is the one thing we can't get back. And when I go in and I do these guest roles and I'm like, I've just been here for 2 weeks and I'm exhausted. And these folks are like coming back tomorrow to start another episode. It's just like, whoa. I mean, 13, 15-hour days. I don't know when these people like have time to like cultivate their relationships and raise their kids. I don't know how they do it. Saying many people coming from theater think, this is what I always heard. Theater actors saying, I want to do more TV and film because you make so much money for less work. And I'm like, no, it's a whole other discipline. A lot of it is waiting, and where the discipline comes in from theater, I think is, because you all know you do a scene that takes 30 seconds but it takes them 2 hours to set it up. And it takes you an hour to film it because you got to film it from different angles. So while you're waiting, if you've done the rehearsal and you're in your trailer and they go, okay, we need you to set, you can't go, oh my God, I've been napping for 2 hours, so I can get into it. No, you're expected to hit it. So that's a whole other kind of discipline of like, okay, where was I? Yes. Because time is money, especially with episodic TV. The great thing about doing the films I've done, there's so much more time to me, that's where the real art is. They will do like that one scene I did in Indiana Jones. It took us 2 days because the director was so specific about what he wanted and the time period that it was. It was like, there was the real art and the real creating together. But episodic TV, it's like you come in, boom, boom, you go into an already running machine. You're expected to be prepared. Do you think you can't slow things up? And then you're out, and the train keeps going. So people don't really get that, and I'm glad I've done enough for it to go. Okay, let me get into that mode. Let me be focused. Let me not. And also, I've seen actors go in and take a small part, and they want to do more, so they want to kind of jazz it up. That's not required. That's not appropriate for this situation. Do your lines, do them well. But you might be asked back, but thinking I can add this little extra something to it, not appropriate. And those are things that you only learn. You learn in the moment.
Mm-hmm. No, this was such a inspiring conversation, and I know our listeners will get so much out of it. And
I hope so.
All read your book.
No, what you talk about. First of all, the book is a must. My Pride,
Master Performance, and also please, if you go to my website, I now own my book. I got the rights to my book from Disney, so I now own my product. It's now available in paperback and hard copy from my website, altonfitzgeraldwhite.com. It's the same price you would pay on Amazon, except that I will sign it and send it postage paid. I make it easy for you. And also, my Disney album is also available, altonfitzgeraldwhite.com.
It is a must-read, whether you're an actor, a businessman, or anyone. It is an incredible book.
It's a lifestyle book. Yes, it is. It's not just about show business. It's about life.
Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done it yet, please support Heart to Heart with a 5-star rating and a review.